is very close to my heart. When it comes to empowering SMEs and building the ecosystem for the UAE F&B manufacturing sector, that's exactly what we've been going through for the last decade or more. So very excited to be here, and it's such an opportune time with the commitment from the UAE government on the F&B sector, one of the 5 key sectors for the UAE government to prioritize, and in fact we're starting with the food clusters in F&B, so perfect timing. In terms of driving investment into the UAE, it is a great time. The amount of things that the UAE government is doing to help manufacturers, whether it is from ICV, UAE First, Make It in the Emirates, to initiatives like SEPA, it's been fantastic. So on the panel today, we've got all the experts from the different areas, whether it be the entrepreneur, whether it is the banker who's going to help fund, whether it is the retailer with Tom and with Spinneys, when it comes to the insurer to make sure that the risk is minimized for the entrepreneur, and the scale-up enabler, Noor from Endeavor. So we've got a lot we want to discuss, so we're going to get right into it. I wanted to start by discussing what are some of the key initiatives that each of the panelists here in their respective fields are doing to really help that ecosystem. If we can start with you, Noor, talking a little bit about Endeavor and how you're helping the ecosystem.
Great. Can everybody hear me well? Okay, so my name is Noor Shawwa. I work with Endeavor. Endeavor is a non-profit organization that works with what we call high-impact entrepreneurs. Our definition of a high-impact entrepreneur is twofold. One is that they're entrepreneurs that take a small business and they scale it up significantly to achieve success. That could be an IPO, an exit, or achieving 10x revenue growth to be at least a $100 million business. In the process of doing that, they tend to be some of the largest job creators in an economy. They create wealth for themselves and people around them, and they create stories that inspire other people. The second part of what makes us define as a high-impact entrepreneur is that these entrepreneurs, when they achieve success, they start mentoring, investing in the next generation of entrepreneurs, and some of them go out and start second businesses. And very interestingly, some of them actually have people that worked with them that go out and start businesses themselves. So a very good example of this are the founders of Careem. It's a business that has achieved success that we all know about. But what a lot of people might not know is that they're active investors and mentors. And there was a report that came out a couple of years ago that showed that there was almost 200 startups in the region that were started by people that used to work at Careem. So Endeavor focuses on these entrepreneurs. I'll tell you a little bit about what we do once we engage them. We support these entrepreneurs when we engage them when they are past the startup stage. So an interesting analogy is that it's almost like when their business transitions from the childhood stage and they're moving into an adolescent stage where they have product market fit and they're really looking to scale this thing to the next level. There's a lot of potential, but there's a lot of chaos and a lot of change that happens. And a lot of these entrepreneurs at that stage outgrow their personal network. So Endeavor comes in and provides support by connecting them to mentors who are successful entrepreneurs, executives, investors, and consultants who have very relevant experience and volunteer their time to help mentor these entrepreneurs, to help them make better decisions. And then we support them also if they're looking to expand to other markets, they can leverage the Endeavor office in that other country. We almost tell the entrepreneurs to look at Endeavor as a second embassy in that other country, or by getting access to investors if they're fundraising. Just to give a quick footprint in terms of Endeavor, we've selected about 2,500 entrepreneurs in 43 markets around the world. Combined, they generated $50 billion in revenue and have employed 4.1 million people. So we focus on these entrepreneurs that have the desire and the potential to scale to the next level. And we always tell the entrepreneurs, we sit on the entrepreneur's side of the table. We operate as a nonprofit. So any revenue that we generate is a means to an end for us, because we are a purpose-driven organization to make sure that we help these entrepreneurs achieve success. And we do that, but then we also engage with the ecosystem to build relationships with government, investors, and others to make sure that we can help foster an entrepreneurship ecosystem. I manage the UAE, and we've been operating here for 11 years now. Some of the entrepreneurs in the network are Property Finder, Tabi, Kitopi, BNB Group, Hunter Foods, and many others. So I'll just stop here.
No, thanks, Noor. It is really enabling the ecosystem for scaling up. So that's great. I want to go ask Abdulla to talk a little bit about, all the different facilities which are open to the SME manufacturing sector, especially with the priority on F&B being one of the 5 key pillar sectors.
Thank you. So in terms of our 5 sectors, 2 of the sectors, food security and manufacturing, falls under the sectors that you've mentioned and what we consider as a priority. The government identified that these 2 sectors need support and need to grow here in the UAE. And as a development bank, we look to finance their growth, expanding their factories, purchasing machineries, through different financing products. What differentiates us as a development bank, we don't only look at the commercial aspects, we look at the developmental aspect also. Today, when we look to finance a project, we measure how much economic impact to the overall GDP this project will have, if it will have import substitution, export promotion, advanced technology, bringing in experts, creating jobs, local content. All these items comes into play when we look at assessing any project that we look to finance. And what does the financee gets in return? He gets a better pricing, longer grace period, and longer tenor for the project that we look to finance. So this is the main project. So we're a project, we really focus on the project finance. We understand manufacturing. All our team members understand the sector very well. And we look to support the companies that look to grow in this sector. The other part I want to touch on is the startups and entrepreneurs. Now, this is a sector where today has limited support, and we recognize that, and we know that there is a huge gap today. What we're aiming to start is the industrial incubation program, in addition to the accelerator program that we have to support UAE farmers. And this incubator program will help enable the startups and entrepreneurs to make it easier for them to start in the industry. Why? Because we already have a strong established network of manufacturers in food and steel and aluminum. All of these manufacturers come under our portfolio, and they've expressed also interest in giving back also, guiding these new entrepreneurs into establishing their business, be it mentoring, matchmaking, understanding the business. All these will be available to any entrepreneur that will be part of the program that inshallah we will be launching soon.
No, thank you so much, Abdulla. I wish when I'd taken over and we were starting the journey, we had EDB at the time. I think it's going to really help the next generation of F&B entrepreneurs. Tom, you've been doing some remarkable work at Spinneys with the incubator program. Just wanted to see if you could discuss some of the objectives and what you've been doing with the program?
Yeah, so we're now into our 5th year of the incubator program, and I think for us it was about taking a slightly different approach to how to support SMEs. There are already well-established opportunities through loans, through financing, through equity and capital raising, but we wanted to really break down some of the barriers and make it a quick, easy way for SMEs to get onto the shelves. It can be, cash flow is king for a lot of these small businesses. So our approach has been really to take more of creating a safe space for entrepreneurs, for SMEs to come in, test their brand, to not have to pay all of the listing fees, all of the account opening fees, all these things that can be very expensive to at the very start of an entrepreneur's journey, particularly in the world of F&B, in the world of retail. It has been hugely successful. We've now brought over 30 companies to our shelves, but also we're particularly proud of the fact that it's been something that's launched into many other retailers as well, not just within the UAE, but we've got plenty of brands that have now launched not only across the GCC, but actually one, our poster child from the first year is actually, having gone from UAE, has moved into the UK, and is just about to get a listing with Whole Foods in the USA and go truly global. So, from small acorns, we really have been able to bring to grow some very big oaks. And for us, what do we get out of it? Well, it's, for me, not only is it just a nice thing to do and something that we can sort of make claims on from an ESG perspective, but actually it's a very affordable way of getting some low-cost R&D. We get to work with some phenomenally talented entrepreneurs, some people who've got some incredibly relevant new concepts, new innovations, and it's a great way for us to test what those concepts are and bring them very, very quickly to the consumers of the UAE and quickly consumer test to see if it's something that can scale up.
Oh, fantastic. And I believe you had the most recent selection just last Friday.
Yeah, so we do it as an annual program. So broadly, it's over the summer we invite all of the applications. That's done as an initial, basically submitting a pitch via the website. And then as we go into December, we go through and shortlist down to a list of 20, which then come through for a bit of a Shark Tank style presentation where we select the final 5. And I know somewhere in the audience, I think I can see Siddha holding a phone up recording, because we've got at least one shortlist for this year in the audience today.
No, brilliant, brilliant. Majed, when it comes to, we can go through the process, but then it's how to mitigate the risk. And that's a very important part of the journey.
I think that's a good question, and I think today Etihad Credit Insurance has played a big role really in supporting a lot of the SMEs and F&B manufacturers here today in the UAE. We work very closely with our partners, including EDB, that be it really mitigating that risk through credit insurance cover. We've also helped a lot of the manufacturers access new markets by, again, providing them the credit insurance solutions to basically grow their sales and mitigate their risk, because we act as a credit management solution for a lot of these businesses as we basically analyze and assess these buyers globally. And one of the biggest issues every SME, every manufacturer, every business faces is always their getting paid on time, or having any delays of payments, or any potential insolvencies. Uncertainty is something you can never value, so that's why credit insurance solutions are always there. And Etihad Credit Insurance was established as a federal entity to fill in that gap. And I think the government and the leadership realized that there was a need for an export credit agency to be established and develop and accelerate the growth of the businesses and SMEs in the UAE. I think Abdullah mentioned earlier, he said, we're a development entity, or they're a development entity as a bank, but we are, I would say, more of a hybrid between development and a purpose-driven entity. So our mandate is really to support businesses accessing new markets and also safeguarding their payments. I think, without giving out too much information, but you have a list of many manufacturers or retailers or food manufacturing companies listed there. I could tell you easily 80% of those are clients or policyholders of ECI, with the exception of Hunter Food. But,
coming soon to a theater near you.
but again, I think our comprehensive solutions really fits and the requirements of a lot of the businesses in or F&B manufacturers here in the UAE. We're seeing a huge growth with the, also with where we have a lot of SEPA agreements. These new comprehensive agreements that has been really led by the UAE government, including our chairman and the Minister of Economy, His Excellency Abdulla Mantoug, has really paved the way for us to support a lot of the manufacturers and exporters from the UAE to access these different SEPA agreements. In the past, it was almost impossible to really access these markets because of the unrealistic tariffs, as you can imagine. So, after some of the SEPA agreements we have established, I think countries like India, Indonesia, Turkey, we've seen a huge growth in terms of export and re-export into these markets.
That's a game changer.
Yes.
So I'm going to ask our entrepreneur, Rashi, you've been through the entrepreneurial journey twice, first with the Protein Bake Shop and now with Plaay.
Correct.
There's so many more programs, initiatives, which are available. I wanted you to describe the journey the first time, your journey the second time, and what continues to be some of the pain points that you have, and how the whole ecosystem can actually help you.
Right. So this journey for me has been almost a decade now, because Protein Bake Shop was in 2013, and Plaay is the next brand. It's actually my second attempt at doing the FMCG, building an FMCG brand. And both the experiences are actually very different, because back then the market was very different, right? So currently we're doing so many things differently. Like we started to manufacture on our own versus co-packing. So I wish I knew about all the stuff that Mr. Abdulla shared, because that would really help us when we started off with Plaay, which was back in 2022 exactly. So one was, of course, we have our own manufacturing unit, compared to Protein Bake Shop. Second is we've got the right strategic partners on board very early on. Homegrown Ventures, they're actually right here. They, we joined hands with them, and they are actually the region's first VC that specialize in better-for-you CPG products, which is great, right? Because this was not there back then. And we've learned so much in this process. We've grown so quickly because of the support that we've got from them. So that's been great. And then I think one of the things we're doing very differently is handling, making sure financial foundations are good, which I think back then, if we go back, we'll notice like all of the startups were handling everything in a very tech way, and F&B and tech are different. So at that time, the mentality was raise and burn, and that's not what it is right now. We are very careful about trying to get out of the red as soon as possible and not get comfortable there, because that can be unhealthy and not sustainable, right? But I do want to say that there are still some challenges that I think all SMEs face, and I think we need to have more of these platforms where we can discuss this, because there are so many new things we can learn, right? There aren't too many people here who are SME founders, but I think I'd like to say a couple of things about what everyone's struggling with, right? Number one is definitely, there's a very complex process when you just set up a business. The business setup here can be complex, it can be slow. And back in 2022, October to be very precise, it was very difficult for me to even open a bank account. So let alone, getting a loan was just very intimidating. But this is 2022, so now I'm guessing a lot has changed. This is for the beginning, like this is a basic thing. Then comes very high MOQs for packaging material and things like ingredients. Plus, we have to agree, it's an emerging market, right? It's not as mature as the markets we look up to. So some novel ingredients that we all want to use get stuck at customs, for example, and this can delay the process of just launching your product, which can be very hard for an SME because overheads are obviously there, right? And then we have the problem of cash flow, which I think you are already solving. But what happens is that, I think we all agree, cash flow is the oxygen of the business, right? More so when you are an SME. And there's a mismatch between payables and receivables. So a new entrepreneur is constantly really pressured to handle this mismatch because my payables are 60 days, my receivables are 90 days. So this causes a massive challenge with cash flow. And then I think comes the major topic where you want to sell. You want to be everywhere. So what do you do as an SME? Obviously, you approach a distributor. Now, with a distributor, it's very challenging because the big distributor does not have the bandwidth to give to a startup. They don't have the energy, the love, the nurture, the attention a startup needs because they will get you on. That's not the hard part, right? That's not a win for an SME to be with a big distributor. The tough part is the execution on the floor by the merchandisers. Because the merchandiser is going to be handling 60 brands, and I think we'll all agree that, a startup is like a baby. As cliched as the analogy sounds, you need that much attention. And one merchandiser can't handle your one little brand, right? It needs more time. And then I think, definitely it comes to retailers, right? Now, I love the stuff that Spinneys is doing. I think the incubator model is great because as an SME, at least the barrier to entry is out when it comes to high listing fees and the cost of activation. Because to list one product, like one SKU, is up to 15,000 dirhams. And if you have 15 SKUs, like we have 15, straight away, you're spending more than 200K just on listing with one retailer, right? I think with the incubator program, more and more retailers need to embrace this because this is one way SMEs can actually, sort of move forward. And look, as SMEs, we understand this is a retail, it's a real estate space, right? That's what eventually it is. And we understand that, but I wish there was some way where there's more support for SMEs, where if we've shown traction online, if we've shown growth online, if our core values align, then we should get some SME-friendly rates or, just some sort of preference, right? And last but not the least, I think it's finding the right talent here, and the right talent with the right startup mentality. And I know it's a hard ask for an SME to tell somebody who is at a senior or junior level, because there's no lack of talent. There's so much here. But to get the right one who's going to leave a secure job and work for a startup is hard. So I've noticed that that's where, we struggle with just getting people who have the right mindset.
No, talent's always the toughest one.
Right.
But you've mentioned quite a lot of points here. So I just wanted to ask Noor the question. You work with so many entrepreneurs, probably with a lot of similar challenges.
Yep.
What would be the guiding path to the entrepreneurs, or how to set up, what's the way forward to try to alleviate some of these issues?
So we tend to work with entrepreneurs when they're at a later stage. So the startup issues are ones that we're not exposed to. But typically what we find, what holds entrepreneurs back from scaling their business is access to talent, access to capital, access to markets. If these three issues are addressed, the entrepreneurs can find their way. So I'll pick maybe one topic and then I guess we can take it from there. On the access to capital, so from my personal experience, having done this now having been working with entrepreneurs for over a decade, access to talent is by far the biggest issue. But the access to capital, because cash flow is important to run the business, I think it's important for a lot of entrepreneurs to kind of take a step back to say, okay, what path do I want to take this business? And typically what I see is that some entrepreneurs take a path of doing a build to own business, and there are some that do a build to sell business. And the way you finance these businesses is very, very different. And it's very misguided for a lot of entrepreneurs in one path when they hear, for example, if they're running a build to own business, and then they hear about a big exit or a big funding round and say, oh, I want to do that. And then they go and they spend so much time and energy talking to VCs, for example, and they realize it's just not a good fit. So I think a lot of the food and beverage businesses tend to be a build to own. It doesn't mean that they won't sell the business later on, but that just means that because they're going on that path, the way they finance the business has to be adapted to it. So they could have the option of getting debt financing to help them bridge the challenge between receivables and payables. It could be getting negotiation until they get critical mass where they can start having more negotiating power. I think if we look at it from kind of an ecosystem perspective, what's important is the healthy environment. So if you look at economies that really produce, quote unquote, very successful entrepreneurs, the environment is one where the entrepreneur has options. So if the entrepreneur has an option to go to different debt facilities or different players, and then they can basically go and pitch to them or to different retailers, I think that's where, let's say if you're looking at it from an ecosystem, that's what can foster and enable these entrepreneurs to go. Because it's really important to keep in mind that entrepreneurs are a very important part of an ecosystem. They find gaps, they fill these gaps, and they create the future. So it's very important for us as a collective ecosystem to really create an environment where they can thrive. And having worked with entrepreneurs in the UAE and seen entrepreneurs around the world, we have no shortage of entrepreneurs that can achieve amazing success. We just need to move obstacles out of their way, and they will take off. We can have the equivalent of some of the biggest success stories that you would see in North America or Europe or other markets.
Well, that's fantastic. I just want to go back to Rashi's point about that working capital, because there's two ways. Like Noor, you were talking about on the financing side. Either you can get someone to finance you, so finance is not an issue from the get-go. Or the second is you try to build it yourself. Now, if you're trying to build it yourself, then cash flow becomes an issue. To stay cash positive, I think for entrepreneurs is one of the most important parts. So Abdulla, I wanted to ask you, you were talking about the incubator program or having other opportunities for working capital. How could you help the companies coming up with some of these requirements at EDB?
I see. So again, the hardest people to lend are startups and entrepreneurs. The reason is the mismanagement of their cash flows, not having proper, balance sheet, income statement is not presented very well. The person that's assigned to handle the finances does not have all the expertise around it. So we looked back and said, we cannot support them because we don't want to give them a loan or any support, and then he will not able to pay it back. And then it's very difficult for an entrepreneur to get out of any loan if there are mistakes, especially at the early stage. So what we did, we stepped back. We said, okay, what's the first journey when the entrepreneur establishes a trade license? We see Emirates competing trade licenses are issued within minutes. Then the next step after issuing the trade license, the entrepreneur goes and wants to open a bank account. And there he waits 3 to 6 months. He will be paying fees and minimum balance and all these expenses that comes to it. With us, 15 minutes you can open your bank account. Very seamless, very simple, digital. This is the starting of the journey, what we call EDB 360. And within the app, and you can download it again through the App Store or the Google Store. And again, once it's downloaded and the bank account is established, this application is not a typical bank account. You will see all the services that it has: training in finance, access to different economic departments. It will be an open API sort of thing, where any incubator program or any offerings can be integrated with our application. So this is the first step. It will be a one-stop shop initially. This is our vision of how we want it to look like. Now the second problem that we see SMEs facing today is they are unbankable. So how do we make an SME today from being an unbankable to a bankable SME? This is where we have different training, free training programs actually, for entrepreneurs to join. And again, this is now, I'm sector agnostic here. Any sector can open the bank account and connect with us and be part of the network. And then it comes to the step, okay, they will receive training on becoming bankable. They will understand how to communicate, negotiate with the banks. We've done it many times. If I go to an SME, some of them, they don't know how to negotiate or speak the bank's language, and some of them, they're even tough, and they know exactly word for word how to talk to us and how to get even better terms for themselves. So this is in a way that we offer these kinds of training to protect the startups and entrepreneurs. And anyone can email us and can meet with myself or with anyone in the team and have a general conversation of how can I become bankable? How can I take a loan? How can I manage my cash flows? What are the things that the bank looks at before I go and take a loan? So these are the types of support, what we call beyond banking, that we support the startups and entrepreneurs at all sectors.
It's a very interesting concept you're talking about, especially from making an entrepreneur unbankable to bankable.
Correct.
But just to ask you a little bit more about that, generally, what is the area? I know you mentioned, look, having the right statement of accounts, it's being properly made, properly submitted.
Correct.
But outside of that, what would be the number one advice you would give companies or starting entrepreneurs, what they need to be right to be bankable right from the get-go?
I think cash flow is the best advice. They have to manage their cash flow well. They have to retain the profits in the bank. So banks like to see when the entrepreneurs retaining the profits in any of the company. Growth potential, understanding what you're selling. The know-how has to be there. So it is not all about numbers or a feasibility study that is well-polished feasibility studies given to the bank. The owner has to have the know-how of actually executing the project to become successful. So there are many advices but I believe know-how and managing the cash flow is the key advice. And this is what we look at. And we actually test any customer when we meet, we ask them, because we finance so many FNBs, we understand the market, we ask them, we test their know-how, and the know-how should be there. And this drives comfort. And this drives us even taking more risk with the customer that we will finance.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Tom, incubator program at Spinneys. I think I could almost see Rashi saying, wow, that's such a great program, but that's with Spinneys. Now, do you think there's a opportunity there to expand that incubator program rather than just at Spinneys into a whole UAE incubator program for retail?
I think there's quite a lot of very good ideas that are all starting to come together, and Rashi talked about it. The VC fund that she's working with, we're already starting to talk to them, so that there is a network of people, there is a network, an ecosystem, a community, whatever you want to call it, that is coming together to support. There has to be a balance in terms of remembering that we're a business, not a charity, and whilst we want to do this as as a noble effort. We also want to make sure it's something that is actually driving a competitive advantage for us, and not something that I want to share out to everybody. But it is something that we've seen, really scale up in terms of what we're doing within our business, the awareness of it, the number of applications that we get, the way that we're able to support and think about the different aspects and the challenges, like Rashi's mentioned. It's in addition to what we do on the listing fees, we also make sure from a payables and receivables, our payment terms for the first month, when cash flow is at that most critical bit, when that first allocation of stock is going in, is 7 days. So we make sure that payment is in and very early. We've also found in terms of some of the other suppliers, sometimes they've just been coming to us with a concept. Well, we've been able to give them sort of letters of intent, give them actually a contract, so that they then can come to the development bank and give the banks the assurance of, there's a customer here. There's somebody else who believes in this. We see it from a financial perspective. There's a retailer seeing this from a product, from a perspective that allows us jointly to do all of those. So, I mean, am I going to do this and suddenly ask all of the other retailers to join in? No. But we've been very, very open about what we do, how we do it, and we would be more than flattered if everybody else wanted to come and copy what Spinneys does.
Absolutely. I mean, you've got to balance out the competitive edge. And I think you are the ones who've started this program. Completely understand. As this entrepreneur starts scaling, says, all right, well, we need to be able to be everywhere. We need to be able to sell everywhere. But by having the risk taken away, well, then you can actually go overboard and say, look, let me just sell to every country because there's less risk. So there, again, needs to be the right balance. How do you usually work with the companies to make sure that the balance is right?
Absolutely. I think ECI, again, demonstrated its ability because we have access to almost 300 million different information system of different buyers, different sellers globally. This obviously helps us and helps our risk underwriting team to basically analyze, assess these buyers to make sure that they are financially viable to basically trade. So it's like basically accessing all the credit bureau information on all of these buyers. We have our own scoring system where we basically rate these different buyers. So to ensure that tomorrow, if Rashi is selling to someone in Egypt, she gets paid on time. There's no delays. The company doesn't have any sort of issues, legal issues or bankruptcies. There's a lot of work that goes into this to make sure that at least the seller accesses one, new markets. Second, also that they are selling to the right buyers as well. Because the last thing you want, again, is to have cash flow issues and ensure that you get paid on time. Payment terms is the name of the game when it comes to selling today. Nobody is going to pay you in advance. It's not a cash business or a cash advance business. Everybody wants payment terms. Here's where we come in and really fill in that gap and ensure that you have a proper, viable payment terms, and also at the same time you have that sort of a cover against these eventualities. We have paid claims, we have recovered claims, and honestly, in the last 6 years that we have been operational, we have given exposures over 10 billion dirhams today. That's an enormous amount of covers and insurance cover for a 6-year-old company. But I think we've really accelerated ourselves fast enough to really support a lot of the businesses, manufacturers in the UAE. Even for entrepreneurs, by the way, I can tell you that, yes, maybe each one has a different scale-up program and at a different stage. I think we have supported some of the entrepreneurs in really giving them that extra layer of security and insurance so they can become bankable at some point in time.
Yes.
So maybe we come here in between what Noor does and where Abdulla is, and where we can give that extra layer of security to basically give comfort to the banks so that they would give them that funding, let's say.
No, I think it's incredible. Just hearing all the different ways to really help the ecosystem, and I hope for all the audience, you know, it's given you a lot of food for thought, what's available, and how, if any of you are looking for scaling up, not only being an SME, but there are so many opportunities and so many partnerships. Just really want to thank the panel. I think what an incredible panel. I love you guys. And Rashi, thanks for bringing up some of those pain points, the learnings from the journey. I think, you know, it just makes it real. And at the end of the day, it's like, how can we keep improving? I just think there's such an opportunity. One of the things I really hope for in the world is we're going to have our UAE F&B manufacturing, our products from here to the whole world, more and more and more. So it becomes, rather than being something which is a surprise, it becomes, of course, if it's good, it's from the UAE, it's made there. So let's hope we can all keep working towards making that happen. I know we all want to. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.